Boom, we are back with another live today. This is the second live today, bro. We're just pumping out value to the freaking people, dog. Especially with Kash Money Mike. Yo, wait, hold on. We got Kash Money Mike in the building, bro. Y'all not ready for this one. Mike, what's up, bro?
How you doing, brother?
I'm living life on this Saturday. You know me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's good. So this is number 2 for the day?
Yeah, bro. We did Wholesale Hard Knocks about like an hour and a half ago. Went over all sales stuff, objections, how to control a call, that type of stuff. It was really good.
Amazing, man.
The last sales training that we did freaking went bananas. Like, it was the most views I had on any of my videos. I had people DMing me saying, bro, I literally use like 2 or 3 things that you guys were talking about on that live. Got a contract 2 days after. So, like, we're just out here helping people, bro. That's what it's all about.
Man, keep bringing the value, Mikey. You got so much to offer.
Likewise, bro. So, Mike was on my podcast. I started this podcast called The Hustler's Blueprint, right? This was probably like 8 months ago. Mike was one of my first guests on there. So I'm excited to kind of see what he's been up to since then. So, Mike, from like 8 months ago when you were on the podcast to now, what the hell has happened?
Wow. I mean, just so much, right? I mean, I think that first podcast was the Hustler's Blueprint. You wanted to know a little bit about like where we kind of started. So, or where I had started out, not so much about real estate. You were more interested in understanding who you were and how you got to where you are now. And since that podcast, life has been nothing but a whirlwind, man. It's been crazy. So I'm pretty good at seller finance, pretty good at creative finance.
You're kind of good.
Kind of good. I continue to surround myself with people that are better than me every single day in and day out. I keep elevating as much as I can. Nobody really has a perfect blueprint, right? You just kind of jump in and you learn as you do. And it's just been amazing, man. I've stepped into the education space through help of some of my friends. I hate to call students, right? I mean, for the sake of the public, I've got to refer to them as students, but they're really,
homies,
yeah, they're my friends, you know? So I've got a seller finance, creative finance training going on, and that has been absolutely amazing. As a matter of fact, I am in West Virginia right now visiting one of my students.
Really?
Who locked up a seller finance deal.
Let's go. You just launched this thing, bro.
Yeah, man.
You literally just, Mike told me, feels like a couple of weeks ago that he was launching a creative finance thing. Literally, and now he has students locking up deals. That's bananas.
Crazy.
Bro, a lot of my people just know wholesale, right? Like, just know straight cash wholesale. It's like my main model. I dip and dabble into creative finance a little bit, but my main model is direct to seller cash wholesaling, right? So could you tell people what seller finance is? Because Mike is like the seller finance guy. Like, anything seller finance, that's all Mike's world. So could you tell people what seller finance is specifically? Creative finance is like a bunch of different things. Like, it entails so many different strategies, but seller finance specifically is your niche, correct?
Correct.
Love it. So talk about seller finance. What is seller finance? Why would anybody buy a house or sell a house on seller finance?
That's a great question. So seller finance, in a very, very easy kind of way to understand it, is nothing more than getting a homeowner to act as the bank for you. So seller finance is only going to work on properties that are owned wholly outright. There's no mortgage on it. And ultimately, if you understand the way a bank would traditionally draft up a note with interest and terms, all we're doing with seller finance is we're getting the seller to act as the bank for us, and we are using the terms and the interest rate and the payment to our advantage. The advantage of buying it on seller finance as opposed to wholesale or novation or fix and flip where you only get paid once. With seller finance, you get paid every single month, month over month, year after year for the rest of your life, because we never sell property. We use the refinance portion of seller finance because it's really two components here. It's the acquisition side, structuring it correctly, and then it's the refinance component that keeps the properties inside your portfolio and keeps feeding you and your family for years to come.
Right. So you don't even do any real like cash deals at all, or do you dip it down?
I've got no reason to do cash deals, and here's why. So as we kind of move through time, obviously, right? I mean, we're hearing more and more about regulation that's coming down the line. There's so many people that are in the wholesale game that are all pulling the same lists, skip tracing the same lists, calling the same lists. And as wholesalers continue to pound the backs of sellers' heads, trying to buy it at a discount, with seller finance, I can technically overpay for the property. So if we think about what kind of moves people, money moves people, right?
Mm.
Money. Whether on the traditional end or on the investment end, people want to know how much money they're going to wind up with. So if, at a very easy example to understand, if Annie, Johnny, and Susie are out in the park, and Annie's selling some chocolate, and Johnny has $2 and Susie has $1, she's going to sell the chocolate to Johnny because he's got $2, right? So it's really just it's a very basic premise where
right.
we can pay more money. Now, the question always pops up, well, Cash, how do you pay more money? And in order to understand how you pay more money, you have to understand amortization tables. You have to understand timelines. You have to understand payoff periods. You have to understand interest rates. All of those things coupled in order for you to really get a firm grasp on, how you get there.
So there's this thing called seller finance, right? Mm-hmm. And you essentially make the seller your bank.
Correct.
What happens? What does a bank do?
So what a bank will do is this: on a traditional route, let's just say somebody wanted to go buy a house. They identify a house that they like. They walk into a bank, and the bank is going to ask that person for a plethora of things, right? They want to see all your tax returns. They want to see your W-2. They want to make sure that you have all the reserves, right? Usually they're not lending you at 100% loan to value. They're lending you at either 80% or 90%, depending on where you kind of fit inside the home buying process. And the way the bank makes money is by offering you the highest interest rate that they can with the longest term that they can. And what I mean by term is the actual timeline. So with seller finance, we technically can control the term and the interest rate by asking high-level relevant questions that pertain to the seller's financial situation that might put them in a better spot. So a bank is going to want to know if you qualify. A bank is going to ask you for down payment money. A bank is going to ask, how much money you have. It's going to ask you, what kind of a job you have. You're going to have to show pay stubs and tax returns because they don't trust you and want to make sure that you're not lying to them. Mm-hmm. And then they're going to check your credit score, and your DTI, your debt to income, is going to come on in under that credit check. And then if you qualify, you then have to jump through a few more hoops in order to get it closed.
So essentially what you're doing when you're doing seller finance, you're using the seller's situation as leverage to go in and get a better loan, because you're getting a loan essentially, right, from the seller.
You are getting a loan from the seller, and there's absolutely no risk to the seller. The seller's highest risk is that we don't make the payment on the loan, and then they have to take the house back. But in real estate, it's really not about what you own. It's about what you control.
Right.
So if I'm side by side with a wholesaler and the two of us are going after the same property and they have to buy it at a discount to make it work, and I technically can overpay to make it work, I'm going to stand head and shoulders above that person and then ultimately limit the risk to the seller because they truly have nothing to worry about other than sit back and collect a monthly payment every single month. And you get to decide how much of that monthly
Who
payment.
makes all the money? Who makes all the money in the world?
The banks.
The banks.
The banks.
So now instead of you going to the people that make all the money in the world, why don't we go make these people the bank? Now they benefit from being a bank, which is the people who make all the money in the world. Why would we not provide that type of service? I freaking love it. How are you getting these deals?
So I do things a little bit differently than most people. I think to answer your question in two parts is you can prospect the same way you prospect for wholesale.
Mm.
You could prospect the same way you prospect for novations. You could prospect the same way you prospect for either short-term loan. I don't know what everybody's strategy is. Everybody has their own exit strategy, but you can definitely find those deals off market.
Yeah.
You can pull a list. You could pull a vacant list. Obviously, if you choose to work in multifamily, you're going to have less competition in that area too. I stay out of single family. I'm strictly in the multifamily realm as I kind of move through time here. I've got a bunch of single family deals, but I'm working strictly on multifamily. There's less competition there. If you can underwrite a single family, you can underwrite multifamily.
Yeah.
So I like to go there, and I like to work in that sandbox. I source deals from the MLS. I sourced two deals. It's funny. So I started telling you about me being in West Virginia, and one of my students who was taking me out, showing me some of the houses that he was looking at purchasing or had purchased. We stopped at this one house. This actually happened today. I got off the plane. I landed in Pittsburgh. I met him about an hour away. He was driving me around. We went to one house, and as soon as we got out of the house, the neighbor next door walked out, and she asked if everything was okay. She was nervous.
You were like, no, I need to buy a house.
Well, this isn't my neck of the woods, and I'm here to visit my friend here. So I didn't want to really I knew what I wanted to do and some of the questions I wanted to ask for him.
Mm-hmm.
So a woman came out and said, "Is everything okay?" And my buddy Luke walked up and said, "Yeah, everything's fine. I actually know the owners of this house. We were just coming by. They forgot to leave the key for us to get in." And he asked the simple question, "Are you interested in selling?" And she said, "Yeah, in about a month." And then I immediately kicked in and said, "Okay, I've got to get inside this house."
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "Hey, is it okay if we just walk in and kind of peek at some of the stuff that you have going on?" And sure enough, we walked in, found out that they own another house in Conway, South Carolina. They made the house in Conway their primary, and this house in West Virginia is no longer their primary. She immediately said that she didn't want to pay a bunch of closing costs and commissions to brokers. The house was paid outright. I'm paid off. And I immediately started to pitch seller finance. And at the end of the conversation, they were thanking us up and down, not only for saving them $100,000 in capital gains tax that they knew they were up against, but they didn't understand how it worked and how they could be the bank.
Yeah.
So we've actually got some content of it with
That's
them saying,
dope, bro. That's dope.
"Oh my God, thank you very much."
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's just.
I think that's another conversation that we can have probably on another live because we'll go down a freaking rabbit hole of all the benefits, tax benefits, and all that type of stuff. But dude, that's so crazy. So that was the neighbor, if I'm getting that story right?
That was a neighbor who we did not know had a house for sale. And the next thing you know, we were in the house.
This is so freaking important, bro. This happens all the time. I had, listen to the story. I had my team set me up with an appointment. Okay. Right down the street from my office. I had a funny feeling that something was going on. I'm like, yo, there's just something here. Like something's not clicking. This guy is like super short with me. And because I called to confirm the appointment and there was just something off. Right. So I go to call him back because I saw that his name wasn't on the deed. And I'm like, what the heck, team? We got to figure this stuff out. I mean, it's on me. I implemented an SOP now that the team, before they ever set an appointment, they have to go check out the deed and make sure that it's the right person. But anyways, I call this guy and I get to his voicemail because I called him back because I wanted to see like what was going on. Hey, is Marie was the lady on the deed. I'm like, is Marie going to meet you there at the property? Because I see she's on deed. Like, who is Marie? And I get to the voicemail and he gave the voicemail was a completely different name than he was giving us, right? So he was just playing games with us. And I knew it. And I'm like, okay, you know what? This is like 3 minutes down the street from my office. Why don't I just go to the house and have a conversation? So I go to the house, I have the conversation, and I just make it funny. I already knew that this guy was not at the house. I think he said his name was Jeffrey or something. So I go to the house and I talk to a lady that was in a car in the driveway. And I'm like, hey, I'm supposed to, I'm on an appointment to buy a house, knowing that obviously I'm not at the right house. You know what I'm saying? But just to get her confused. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy named Jeffrey said that he owned this house. I'm an investor in the area. Like I buy houses all around the area. And I was just on an appointment to check it out and give an offer. I mean, I'm assuming Jeffrey doesn't live here, right? I must have got played. And she's like, yeah, I have no idea who Jeffrey is. So I end up asking her like, whoa, while I'm here, do you have any interest in selling the house, or do you know anybody that's selling in the neighborhood? And she's like, yeah, actually we're selling in like 3 months. And now it's a lead in my CRM just from going there. So it's just having a conversation just like you did. But it's so interesting. What's funny about that though is that I text the guy after. I'm like, do you just like wasting people's time?
Yeah.
And he's like, that's what he said word for word. He's like, that's what you get, motherfucker. Stop calling me. I'm like, yo, I respect it, bro. Yeah. And then I was like, the good news is we're actually going to buy that house in about 3 months. When we do, I'll send you over a referral fee. So good. Yeah. But at the end of the day, bro, it's just like having a conversation. That's it.
A conversation, a crack in the door, a little conversation. You get in there, you start educating sellers, you start talking about some of the stuff that you're doing. You'd be surprised how much headway you can get. So you could source these deals from anywhere. You can source them from the MLS. You can source them from cold calling. You can source them from text blasting. The reality is that if you utilize seller finance, you are going to be able to pay more money. And if I'm able to pay more money over the next guy, I am the guy who's going to get the deal.
Talk about this really quick. There's not too many people that just say, you know what? Screw wholesale. Screw everything else. Screw novations, whatever. I'm just like diving deep into seller finance. I don't even give a shit about anything else. Maybe you'll take a wholesale deal if it comes across your desk or whatever the case is. Obviously, you can do all types of deals. But like, there aren't too many people out there that are just like, bro, seller finance is the way. Why y'all spending time anywhere else? I'm just diving into seller finance. Could you explain like your mindset towards why seller finance is just such a rabbit hole that you go down?
Yeah, I think because 90% of the investors have been brainwashed to think that they're actually acquiring assets when they go ahead and they wholesale. It's the easiest form of real estate that you can do. If you don't listen, real estate is not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. So with wholesale, all you get is bombarded by social media on how great wholesale is and how people want to scale and do this and do the other thing, and they know nothing about real estate. Where if they took the time, the same amount of time to really understand how principal and interest works, how capital gains tax works, how corporate structure works, how acquiring real assets work, and how the money game works, you would never wholesale again.
Mm.
So for the people who don't, I'm not saying that wholesale that seller finance is the end all. I'm saying you should do what you believe is the right thing to do, but you should definitely understand the tax ramifications. You should understand how you pull your money out of properties tax free in this country, because you've heard me say it before, and I'll say it again. It's not the real estate that gets you rich, it's the tax code.
Mm.
And when you're wholesaling deals and you're running through wholesale deals, novations, fix and flips, those are inventory deals. You get taxed differently on that money than you would if you took something over subject to, if you took something over hybrid, if you took something over seller finance.
Mm.
So one guy in this country, and I know he's a little controversial and he's very, very rough around the edges sometimes, but Robert Kiyosaki,
I swear I was thinking about him, bro.
his whole portfolio
Yeah.
is seller finance.
Is it really?
All of it. I mean, not anymore, right? But when he first got started, it was all finance.
Really?
The whole thing.
That's interesting, bro. I did not know that.
Yeah.
But as you were talking, that was like the first guy that was popping in my mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you really want to be inspired by somebody and you really want to understand the money game, you go follow the guys who are doing big money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm surrounded by guys like Eric Klein that are doing huge amounts of money in wholesale. But in my opinion, not doing it the right way. Is he making fantastic money? Yeah. But you could be making 20 times the money that you would make on a wholesale deal. Again, a wholesale deal, you're getting paid once. Seller finance deal, you get infinite returns.
I love that. Can you break down like, oh, actually, this is perfect. You had a deal that you said you found on the MLS that a wholesaler put on the MLS, right?
Yes.
I think it was a sub 2 deal or something like that.
Yeah, it was a sub 2. Yeah, we just closed on that one.
Hell yeah, bro. So could you talk about the difference between what would have happened if that wholesaler just wholesaled it to somebody rather than taking it down himself like you did? Like what are the differences?
Well, the difference is that he didn't know how to take it down.
I'm talking about the benefits, right? Like what are the pros to him just getting the wholesale fee, pros and cons, and what are the pros and cons to him actually taking it down himself like you did sub 2?
2 words: cash flow.
Mm.
Cash flow.
So talk about the deal really quick, so people, because
Yeah. So yeah, all right. So sorry, you got to bring me back, and I'll slow it down, and I'll go slow. So if you understand seller finance, you technically understand subject to, because they're almost the same. Mm. The only difference between a sub 2 and a seller finance is that you're not able to structure your own terms. There are terms already in place that you're taking over.
Right.
Right. So seller finance and subject to are eerily similar. That wholesaler, I'll tell you a little bit about that deal, is my wife, again, is a broker, and she sourced the deal on MLS. And there were 3 words inside the MLS listing that stuck out to her. And
I want everybody to write this down.
Yeah, write that. Grab a pen and a piece of paper, because I'm about to drop you some lead generating sources that you haven't even thought of yet. Mm-hmm. So grab your pens and your pieces of paper, and here it goes. There are really 5 words that are on the multiple listing system now that I haven't seen in a long time. The first 2 are motivated seller. Why are we starting to see motivated seller? We're starting to see motivated seller because interest rates are through the roof. Days on the market are up. prices are coming down. So for brokers who haven't asked specific questions, you're now getting clients going, hey, listen, let's drop the price on this thing because I need to move. And the broker might not ask, well, why do you need to move, or what's going on with your finances? Questions that we would ask as investors to really dig deep and find the motivation. They don't have to dig deep because their mindset is, hey, I'm going to go put it on the market and I'm going to collect a commission. They're commission focused, not only commission based, right?
Mm-hmm.
So motivated seller is two keywords that any broker watching here can punch into their MLS system and have all the listings come up that say motivated seller. The next three are equitable interest listing. When somebody puts up equitable interest listing, you are essentially telling me that you're a wholesaler.
Mm-hmm.
You're also telling me that you put it up on Facebook and you put it up on Craigslist and you put it up on Instagram and you couldn't sell it.
Right. So for people that are listening that might be like, what the heck? How could a wholesaler put a deal on the MLS? Well, they must have something in their purchase and sale agreement that allows them to list the property on the MLS. So essentially they have something, whether it's a special stipulation in their purchase and sale agreement or something that says, hey, I am allowed to market this property whatever way I want on the MLS, on Facebook, or whatever. So that's what happened. So this particular wholesaler ended up essentially listing it on the MLS to get some buyers.
And put it on the MLS because he couldn't sell it on his own and paid a flat fee listing broker.
Mm-hmm.
So put it up for $500 or $600 on a flat fee listing. So for all of you that are looking at deals, go find the flat fee listing brokers in your neck of the woods and look at all of those properties. They would not be putting them on the MLS if they didn't lock them up too high. Right. They're running scared to get rid of the house. They're going, how do I get rid of the house? And if they don't get rid of the house, what happens to the deal? They let it go and it drops out of contract. So essentially what happened with this deal is it came up on the MLS. It came up as an equitable interest listing. Now, I'm going to bring you back to the point that you were talking about, just having a conversation. So it said equitable interest listing. And I said to Stacy, that's a wholesaler. And my wife, even though she's fantastic and she's always by my side, I do things creatively that my wife doesn't truly understand sometimes. She does more of the lead generating stuff for me. So I said, well, sweetheart, it says equitable interest listing. That's going to be a wholesaler. And she got in touch. Now, here's another mistake that they made is inside the listing, they go, please contact the seller directly for access. And the wholesaler let me into the property with the homeowner still there and asked me not to ask any questions to this homeowner. The first thing I'm going to do when you let me in the house with a homeowner is I'm gonna ask questions at a rapid rate.
Guys, this is why we say buyers are liars, sellers are worse.
To gather all the information
and
then ultimately leverage that information so that I'm able to put a deal together. And I merely went in there and I said, I want to make you aware that I would never step on anybody's toes. I understand that you're under contract, but let me tell you what's going to happen with your contract. It's going to fall out. And when it falls out, I want you to call me because I'm going to be the only one who's going to be able to help you.
Yeah.
And she said, well, how are you going to help me? And I said, well, tell me how many months behind on your mortgage payments you are.
She's like, dang, you know that?
She's like, how'd you know that? So it's just, you could you could source deals. You could source deals anyway. But I think the thing about like the difference between wholesalers and seller finance, creative finance investors are naturally inquisitive. Like we're curious, right? And curiosity mixed with mirroring can bring you massive results.
Legit. That's all. That's all my sales is, bro.
I know,
Curiosity.
I
So
know it. And I know you're a killer. I know you're an absolute killer on the phone. So the sales part of it, the sales component to any of these are going to be super important also.
So I'm going to challenge you for a second.
Let's go.
This guy, right? This guy that had the listing, the wholesaler. What if instead of just telling the seller, hey, give me a call once you follow the contract because I'm going to solve your problem. What if we contacted the wholesaler and explained to them what subject to is and seller finances and all this stuff and maybe got them assignment fee, and then red alarms went off in the wholesaler's head and said, yo, I have like 100 more of these leads. Mike is going to help me out with all these leads.
So I love that. I don't technically JV. I feel like I wind up having to spend more time educating a wholesaler and teaching them about seller finance and creative finance than I don't know why that's a little shiny there. Oh, there you go. Teaching them a little bit more about seller finance and creative finance than I really want to spend the time on.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not. That's a great question because there are communities that are formed out here that you're supposed to leverage for people to bring you deals.
Right.
I don't believe that you can get the type of education that you can get or that you need to have by having people bring you deals because they technically don't know what to look for. I've underwritten a ton of shitty seller finance deals all week. And I find myself kind of spending time doing that when I would prefer somebody take some time, take some money, go get educated, educate yourself, and try to pick these up for yourself. Understand what your own end goal is. And my end goal is absolutely not to JV. I will partner with people, but the people that I'm partnering with, like the guy who's sitting right across from me, I know that the guy sitting right across from me
That's very, very smart, bro. I like
knows
that.
what he's doing.
Because we do see a lot of wholesalers that just keep running into the same problem. I'm like, bro, come on, dog. Did you ask the seller this? And they're like, oh no, I forgot to do that.
I just said to my buddy Luke, I said, I'm actually going to make them fill out a web form and don't leave a thing out of the web form because I can't keep going back and forth, sending you back to ask questions. So what I would prefer that some wholesalers did or people who are in novations or whatever it may be is to go ahead, take the time to get educated by a guy like Mike G, get educated by a guy like myself, get educated by somebody like Pace Morby, get educated by somebody like Eric Klein. Take the time to jump in. Don't rush the process. Yeah. And then I'll JV with you.
Hell yeah. I love that. That's fire. So good. So you're like, yeah, I wouldn't want to spend my time with a wholesaler on the MLS who I already know just doesn't know what he's doing because it's going to take a lot of my time when I'd rather dedicate my time to my students who are investing in themselves and really, truly care.
Hell yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. I love it.
I mean, if I teach you, well, first of all, I don't teach anything. I show people how to do this stuff. And if I show you how to do it and you're fully equipped with the tools to do it, and I don't have to deal with some virtual wholesaler who technically should be working in their own backyard, but is listening to everybody on Instagram on how to scale to mega levels. And they've got this, it's just the craziest shit to me. You need to really take the time to get involved in real estate. You're very well versed in real estate, Mike, for a reason. You take the time to understand the systems. People are looking for quick money. And if you're looking for the quick money guy, Cash Money Mike isn't for you.
Let's go. That's fire. I think I'd like to leave that off at this. Understand real estate. Like, which means understand your numbers, understand tax codes, understand the law, like understand all that. That is real estate. Real estate isn't just listing a house like a real estate agent does, or finding a house for a buyer, or even a wholesale. Like, I think wholesale is like the entry level into understanding real estate, because you do have to know your numbers to a point. There are wholesalers who just kind of go like this and, put out offers and get super lucky. You know what I'm saying? But if you're going to consistently wholesale, you got to know your numbers. You got to understand investing. And investing is what real estate is. Like, when you say you're in real estate, that means you're investing in real estate, like investing. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But when you say you're in real estate and you maybe own a title company, or you're a real estate agent, or you're a transaction coordinator or something like that, it's more like a service. Not saying, not knocking any of those people. Like, I freaking love my agents and love my attorneys and love all them, right? But at the end of the day, what Mike is saying here is understanding real estate, like really truly understanding what real estate is. Like, what is this asset that sits here? What is it? What purpose does this asset serve?
Exactly. Exactly. I'm always worried about week 2 of my training because it always feels like old hat, right? And it's a lot about the home buying process and the loan process.
Mm,
So just understanding the home buying process and the loan process, what it's like for you as the one buying, what it's like for the bank, the one lending, all of that stuff can help you so tremendously in your negotiation. You have no idea. Like, and that's the whole thing, is that if you don't understand it, I know on week 3 they're going to have all the aha moments. They're going to go, "Oh
mhm.
my God, that was possible." And on week 2, I'm like, man, I hope they don't think I'm like just just giving them a bunch of shit, because
Mhm.
it's really not shit, right? So even if I don't know what your audience looks like, but I'm assuming that there's some newbies on here or new investors that gain a ton of value from you. Even if you don't own a piece of real estate, understand what that process is like.
Yeah.
You could do that in 2 days. 2 days, you could have that
Mhm.
done. Understand what the loan process is like. That's 4 days.
Mhm.
Understand what the ramifications in tax are like. That's 6 days. Get in, jump in 2 feet, and get educated.
Love that, bro. Mike, I appreciate you, dog.
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for having me on.
For sure, bro. What do you want to leave the people with?
I want to leave the people with. There's never a perfect time. It's never going to be perfect. Action eats.
Hmm.
Action takers eat. If you want to learn about seller finance or creative finance, I might as well plug it while I'm here. If you want to learn about seller finance or creative finance, I'll show you how to overpay for property, effectively eliminating all your competition, and allow you to get paid month over month, year over year for the rest of your life without ever having to deal with JV, dispo, buy boxes,
Hmm.
drop contracts, percentage of ARV, any of that stuff. Just shoot me a DM at Cash Money Mike, and I'd be happy to get you in the right direction.
Boom. Cash Money Mike, people. You guys heard it here first. At Cash Money Mike with a little underscore on Instagram. Shoot him a DM. Get in that world. If you guys aren't subscribed to the channel and you're watching, come on, man. You know what I'm saying? Yo, Mike, some people really be watching the videos. They don't subscribe or like the video, yo. These videos, Mike just dropped some gems, right? What happens when you subscribe and like is the videos go a little bit viral. More people will see it. More people need to see people like Mike pour out some value. So please subscribe to the channel, like the page, all the things, like the video. We appreciate y'all. Peace.
Peace, brother.